So welcome everybody to the Nature Diary session for November. So this is the 11th session, which is really cool that we've done this many, and so there's one more left and we'll decide what to do, whether to continue it next year or not. So if you can give me feedback about whether you want to keep going, just let me know. So today we're painting the painted frog, which is known as Zrinch in Maltese. So I'll just share some photos with you. So yeah, this is the painted frog that I spotted at Witolea recently, where I work. It's a really lovely valley full of trees, so you should go and visit it. And I'm going to try and do some more events there. So maybe stay tuned to the Facebook page and you can attend future events, and I'll try and do some explanations about flora and the plants and the animals that are found there. So that was quite exciting. And as I was saying before, that's why I chose this frog for this month, because I suddenly spotted it there, and they're coming out of hibernation, and you can see them more frequently now. And I also wanted to show you, so on the Malta Wild Plants website, which is a very, very useful website if you want to do research about Maltese plants and animals. So if you this is the website at the top. And if you click on the butterfly in the top right-hand corner, you can search for the different animals. So I'm trying to find out, I think chordata means it has a spine, but it's called something different. But anyway, so we're going to search for amphibians. And so then you get the two amphibians. This is the painted frog. This is the Levant water frog. The Levant water frog is an introduced species, but this one is our only native amphibian in Malta. So here's some photos, and you get really good photos of Malta wild plants. So if you're doing a study about animals, it's really useful. I really like this photo because it shows you the webbing between its, I don't know, can you call them, I think you can call them toes. I'm not quite sure what you call them on a frog. And I really like this one as well, because this is good for seeing the markings on the frog. So yeah, the ones that we have in Malta aren't green, but their color varies. It's kind of a bit difficult to decide what kind of color to paint them, because they're so different, depending on their age and maybe depending on their environment as well. So I haven't found the exact information, but some people say that it's sub-endemic, which means when it's endemic, it means it's only found in one location. When it's sub-endemic, it means it's found in just a few locations. So some people say it only exists in Malta, Gozo, and Sicily. But to get the exact details, it's probably best to read an article. So it lives in valleys and in agricultural land and other places if there's freshwater pools or streams. In the summer, it finds damp places and can lie dormant, which means it's sleeping in the dry mud, so kind of hibernating until it starts to rain, and then it can start to breed. So that's when you see the little tadpoles, that's the babies. So it's really important for us to get rain, otherwise these frogs can't survive. Adult frogs feed on insects like mosquitoes. Yay! We need more animals that eat mosquitoes. It also eats flies and other kinds of insects. And some of the main threats to this frog are the destruction of the habitat of the places where it lives, pollution of water sources, using too much water for irrigating fields, and catching them is not, of course, helpful, because they need to live in their own environment. So if you spot them, go up to them, see if you can take photos if you want to, or just simply watch them, but we need to leave them in their place. And they are also a protected species. So let's get drawing and painting. So I need to switch screens. But I need to, remove my spotlight. So I hope that's not too dark. I think it should be okay. And right, so I'm going to grab, I need to send you a photo for those who need photos. So what I did with this is I took one photo, but I kind of, as you can see in my painting, I've taken a bit of different things from different photos. So I used the Malta Wild Plants website to look at the webbing and to look at the colouring. But I used the photo I've just sent you in the link to just get the general shape of the frog, because it kind of looked a bit weird when I painted it. I drew it, looked swimming or floating in the water. So I've just sent you that. I kind of, okay. So pencil, I'm going to use a bit of a softer one. And as usual, I'll just check. Oh, I hope my phone battery is going to be okay. The charger's not, hopefully start to charge. So like we usually do, the first thing to do is to draw the main shape. So, and decide where the frog's going to be on your piece of paper. So I'm going to put mine down here, and the main shape is, I've just eaten an avocado, so maybe it's kind of like when you cut an avocado in half. So the head's going to come there. And here, but just, which I probably, you need to make sure that there's enough, hopefully, maybe there's not enough light. Let me, when I put the curtain up, it means I can't see the screen so much, but maybe, is that better for lighting? The sun's in a funny place as well now, because the hours, well, the position of the sun has changed. And then make sure that you've got enough space for the leg on this side. I think I've put him a bit too far down, but maybe we'll be okay. And that's, so I'm just literally just drawing the shape at the moment, not the details. And I'm going to lift his head up a bit. And his arm can go somewhere there. And I'm going to have him or her sitting on a rock. in a stream or a valley. Okay, so we've got the shape there. Just going to get the photo on screen. So then we can start drawing the more of the detail. So because we're seeing the frog from the side, you're of course not going to see my phone isn't charging. Okay, maybe it's okay now. Hopefully. You're only going to see part of the leg at the back. So, and then the back of the frog kind of comes out like kind of pointed. So that's the leg, but let's not make it complicated. Let's keep drawing along the back, and you'll see the back of one of the eyes. And then the top of the frog's mouth. And then it comes in like that, where his mouth is. I think that should be okay. Maybe it could be a bit further up. Oops. Okay, so then we have just get the picture on screen. The part underneath his actual mouth, so the chin, and then it comes down. He has I don't know all the exact details of what everything is called on these animals, but you know when a frog makes a noise and he or she makes that noise, ribbit. This is the part that we're drawing now, and it comes where it blows up in his chest or her chest. So it kind of comes down a little bit, and then the arm starts. So I'm going to rub out the arm that I've drawn so far, because it's just a rough idea. On the photo, kind of goes round like that. So sometimes it's helpful to draw those lines, even though you can't see them, to see, or well, you can see a little bit, to see how the arm is formed. And then it comes out like this, and for reference, you can sort of look at where the arm stops and starts. And when I was drawing this the first time, I found it a bit difficult drawing the fingers because they kept coming out looking like human fingers. And then when you try and draw them, I don't know, they're quite alien looking as well. So I'm going to have to try and draw them a bit differently now. Try. And of course, so you can't see all of them. I drew all of them in my first painting, but I don't know if it came out looking a bit strange. Because when you don't have a reference, it's always good to have a reference to draw from when you're drawing these things. And ideally, you'd draw it in the field. So if you can never practice outside, as long as you're not harming anything, then I'd go ahead and draw it outside. So it's interesting in the photo, really, the fingers are this way because it's holding on to pieces of grass. So maybe put some grass in there. Grass and twigs. It's not the best. Let me see if I put one of the curtains down. Hopefully, yeah, that's a bit better, isn't it? Okay. So then we're going to draw the stomach part. And there isn't that much space between the stomach and the next leg. So that's another good tip when you're drawing to see how you're doing, is to look at the shapes in between. So that's kind of the right shape in between here. So it goes back. I think you almost forget what you're drawing sometimes. You're just drawing shapes and lines. And they're such strange but fascinating creatures. They look like a bit alien-like. Sometimes I'm just amazed that we share the world with all of these amazing animals. And there's just so much to see out there. Even on our tiny little island, which actually has a lot of, for its size, has a lot of living things here. We just need to look after it a little bit more. And in fact, so on islands, you can get a lot of species that are different to the rest of the world because they'll be isolated in one space. for a certain amount of time, then they become their own species and different to the ones that you find in other places, because they can't breed with the animals on the other areas of land. So this is where I went, because if you are using the photo for reference, I went a bit rogue here, and I decided to, I don't know if they do this with their webbed feet, but I just wanted to show what they look like. So I tried taking this off Malta Wild Plants, so off the website. You so they have 3 long toes. And that comes in, and so 2 on the side and then 1 in the middle. So, and then you draw the webbing in between. Okay. And then we need to draw the eye. So I'm just going to put a line there to show that it's kind of raised. And then the eye that we can see is in line, well, because eyes are in line. And then there's a line that comes around at the top, because they're kind of bulging eyes, and then they're quite big frog eyes. And it's basically a circle, but it doesn't need to be a perfect circle, because I don't think anything in nature is perfect, but it's still pretty amazing. Okay, I think that's okay. I'll just doesn't need to be so much of a line there. It's not smiling as much as my other one, but I think that's good. I'm just going to hold it up away from me. I wonder whether, I think I'm going to lift his eye up a little bit actually. Yeah, okay, that's better. Right, we can start painting. So to paint I'm going to also send you the link on Malta wild plants, but you've probably possibly already found it. But it's quite good when you look at the photos towards the bottom. They're all in different colors. So the one that we're looking at now is kind of reddish, but the one, I think I'm going to go for yellow ochre this time. There is a bit of red in there, so maybe if we mix yellow ochre and red, let's see what happens. Okay, so this is the color I'm going for, and I'm going to try and I'm going to see what happens if I mix some alizarin crimson. So if you have poster paints or I guess, I don't know if any of you are using acrylics, but I'd use, to get this color, I'd use yellow and maybe mix a bit of brown in. Trying to find some space on my pad. I might wash a little bit. Or I'll just keep that. Okay, and I'm going to use a medium-sized brush. And I'm not going to put too much red in. I just want to make it slightly on the orange side. Yeah. I don't know if I can manage to do this. Hi, Stefan and Ethan. Hopefully you can catch up with us. So yeah, sorry about sending the link a bit late, but I've been so crazy busy. I'm going to mix some brown in as well into the, yeah, but I keep going back to the ochre. We're just about to start painting the frog, but hopefully you can catch up. And I've posted in the chat, which you should be able to see. The first one is a photo of the frog that you can use as a reference to draw from. And the second one is more for painting it, really. So I'm going to start painting with this color, and I'm going to paint it all over, because then we can put the markings in afterwards. I still haven't quite decided. So I don't know if I should be using a bigger brush, actually. Oops. I haven't decided how to create the markings yet, because I wasn't convinced about the last one when I tried. And the way, when you're using watercolors, if you want a smooth line or a smooth kind of patch of paint. Not that it has to be, doesn't have to be that perfect anyway. You just keep painting, you paint the top line and then you keep joining up with that line. And it's always good to try and make enough paint, which I'm really bad at, so that you don't get a different color, which is what's happening to me. So for those who just joined, remember main shape first. And treat it as you would treat drawing shapes. And decide where you want to put them on the page. You probably already started, so yeah. And then add the details. And so this is being recorded as well. So if you don't finish, don't worry about it, because I can send you the recording. And then you can finish later. I should probably have removed some more of my pencil markings, but hey. And yeah, it doesn't matter if the color isn't completely solid. I mean, you do get some watercolor artists who are really fine and detailed, which I don't think I am. It's just nice to experiment a bit, especially with watercolor. Okay, so that's the main color. Which is very difficult to decide on, because all made a bit of a mistake, which is fine, don't worry. When you're using watercolor, just dab a bit of water and you should be able to remove it, and then we're going to paint over that area anyway later. So yes, it's difficult to decide what to how to paint the markings. So that's why it's quite good to do a little bit of research and look at the different photos. So I really like this photo in on the Malta wild plants page. Because I think that's quite clear with the markings. So if we, I think the best thing to do is maybe wait a bit longer for the main body to dry. And I'm going to paint a little bit of the rock underneath. And I'm just using yellow ochre for this on its own, but I might add a bit of brown in. But of course, if everybody's painting is going to be different, which is a good thing. So if you want to do anything different, go for it. Yeah, I need to paint the webbing as well in between. But I really like yellow ochre because it's very similar to the color of Maltese stone. And then I'll just paint these two bits of grass, but we can add some other grass if you want to. And I'm going to paint the webbing. I'm just going to use the same color that I used for the main body, but I've added a bit of water. Maybe I should add a bit more water so that it's lighter. Just to make a bit of distinction between the rest of the body. So now we can paint the patterns, which I think the patterns on the body, Payne's grey is really good for, but they are cool. They're looking a bit greeny or greenish in the Malta wild plants photo. So if we mix, I'm going to mix a bit of yellow ochre in. Because Payne's grey is kind of blue. So then if you mix a type of yellow in, you're going to get a kind of muddy green. Or sometimes the more ochre you mix in, the more of an olive color you're going to get. But this is the color I'm getting at the moment, that one in the middle. It'd be good if my palette could fit in the screen, but it's huge. Okay, so I'm going to look at the other photo that we used to draw. Isn't that clear with its markings? I think I'm going to put a little bit of a blob up here. Blob, that doesn't sound very nice. And then it kind of goes down in these other blobs. In 3 lines is what I can see. And maybe if I turn that way, it's kind of the shape of a brush, which is maybe why it's called painted frog, because it's as if somebody painted the frog with a brush. Okay, and what I'm also to do is I'm going to take some yellow ochre, and whilst it's still wet, drop it inside. This is me experimenting. Okay, so I'm going to do another line down the back. Let me make these a bit wider. And then drop the ochre inside. And yeah, it doesn't look exactly like the photo, but it's fun. And on the other side. Maybe I should have gone more ochre on the body. But and we can go, I mean, I went a bit too dark on my other one, so just paint some patches. And they're very random shapes. A bit like, you know, you get that camouflage material. It's a bit like that. And maybe you could and it keeps going right until the edge of the toes. And what I'm going to do is, because it does have some sort of specks of ochre here and there, I'm just dropping some more ochre in. Some people say that you shouldn't, well, I say some people, my mum says it, that when you're painting, it's always good to paint your feelings, I guess, or your emotions, because so how you feel when you're painting this frog, and what do you think about frogs? Because it's good for us anyway, to as a way of self-expression, but we don't have to paint exactly like the photos. We can just paint the way this frog makes us think or feel. It's funny because the frog that I'm painting from at the moment has a totally different expression from the first one. The first one looks really happy. I'm just thinking of, I might bring this up a little bit. Okay. And so the next thing I'm going to do is paint the eye. So when you paint the eye, remember to leave, because so you can see in the photo that it has an expression, reflection. So we want to leave some white inside the eye, so that it's not completely flat. And so I'm going to start, I'm using Payne's Grey, because so with watercolors, you don't usually have black or white, but so I'm going to start from the bottom. Payne's Grey is, you can make it quite dark. So if you, the less water you use with watercolor, the more pigment you're going to get, and the darker it will be. So I'm going to go round, just very lightly around the whole eye, and then keep adding water. So it has a very interesting reflection in this one. And I'm going to make it round in the middle, and then kind of, it's almost as if it has a landscape reflected in its eye. And I think I'm going to smoothen the edges a little bit. It's just a bit of water. And then I'm going to take an even smaller brush, and again use the Payne's grey to paint the mouth. I think I picked enough paint up. No, I picked up too much. And now I'm going to use an in-between brush and paint the, need to mix. I'm going to try and stick to the main colours we've used, which you don't have to do. And I'm going to try and make a green. I have got a green on the palette using ochre. I'm just going to use a little bit of ultramarine. Although, well, no, I think that's okay as a green. Of course, I should be doing what I suggest to you and testing. It's not very bright green. I think it's fine. And I'm just going to paint these two stems of grass. It just looks like it's holding on to something there. And the other thing is quite important. It's always better to ground things with a shadow. So the darkest place is going to be here. So again, taking Payne's grey, just such a useful color. Just painting, because whenever anything is sat anywhere, there's going to be a shadow. And I'm kind of guessing about this. So just imagining that the light, probably the sunlight, is hitting the frog from above to the side. So then there's going to be a shadow all back here. I'm just trying to blend it in, and it doesn't have to be a perfect block of color. And try and make it. Actually, it's quite nice when it's not a block of color. Make it a bit darker at the back. Okay, we're right on time, but what I did with the last one is painted the background as if there's water on the back. So I painted, this is just plain water, just splashing it on. And then I took colors that were on my palette, but because I want to try and use things up, I'm just mixing a few colors together, like greens and blues, and then just painting that on quite roughly. And again, Payne's grey is always a good color. And this is quite good to do it this way as well, because in water you get all sorts of reflections, so it makes it look like water. But if you want to, you could have, because in that photo, it shows that it's on top of a few pieces of grass. My grass has got a greyish color. So you could paint the frog, because it's going to be in damp places. Try and finish soon so I can see your paintings. Funny how different the colors are on screen. But sometimes it kind of shows you if there's something you want to correct a little bit. So maybe that area is a bit too dark. Yeah, that's another good tip as well. Once you've taken a photo of your piece, it can show you things that need a bit more work. I'm going to leave it there for now because I want to see people's pictures. Okay, I'm going to remove my spotlight and stop the recording. So thank you everyone for joining us for November's session. The next Nature Diary will be on the first Saturday of December, which is the 4th of December. And I'll see you then.